This is World Today and I'm Geeta Mohan. In the next half hour, we'll take you through all the big international stories from protests in Russia, turmoil in Pakistan to the big George Floyd verdict. But first up, the headlines. A U.S. jury has found former police officer Derek Chauvin guilty of murder over the death of African-American George Floyd. Derek Chauvin, 45, was filmed kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes during his arrest last May. A defiant Russia warns the world to not cross any red lines and interfere in her internal matters, even as protests continue in the streets of the country demanding release of political prisoners and opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has called for the West to criminalize blasphemy against Islam and treat insult against Islam's prophet as it does the Holocaust. The second wave of coronavirus pandemic has gripped India in the worst way possible. While New Delhi scrambles for resources, countries like Israel have gone maskless. And US President Joe Biden hosted around 40 leaders on Earth Day to pledge towards greater contribution in tackling the problem of climate change. The Leaders' Climate Summit discussed the need to move towards carbon neutrality and achieve net zero carbon dioxide emissions. The trial and conviction of Derek Chauvin attracted more attention than almost any other criminal proceeding in decades, leading to questions and debate over racial equality, equal treatment, and justice for all. George Floyd's death was brutal, but not in vain. US President Joe Biden told his daughter that Daddy did change the world.
George Floyd's family celebrated the conviction of Derek Chauvin, while others gathered in celebrations in Minneapolis at George Floyd Square.
It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling because this is history. You know, we had our doubts. We thought it was big. I'm shocked because I didn't think it was going to be all three. I thought it was at least going to be one not guilty. You know what I'm saying? But all three, this is history. This is amazing.
The eyewitness broke down during the trial as they testified. Darnella Frazier was 17 when she took a video of the arrest that helped prompt a wave of protests across the country.
A man terrified, scared, begging for his life.
On Tuesday, justice was served. Derek Chauvin, former Minneapolis police officer, was convicted of murdering African-American George Floyd after a racially charged trial that was seen as a pivotal test of police accountability in the United States.
Members of the jury, I understand you have a verdict.
A jury of 6 white people and 6 black or multiracial ones deliberated less than 11 hours before finding the 45-year-old Chauvin guilty of all 3 charges against him: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter.
And so we look at the other contributing conditions.
District Court, 4th Judicial District, State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m.
"I Can't Breathe" resonated through America and the world. Those were Floyd's last words as he was pinned down to the pavement by Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck, leading to massive outrage and clashes. A case that spread worldwide like wildfire, calling for a furious re-examination of racism and policing in the US. On the 25th of May, 4 police officials detained Floyd after he had allegedly used a counterfeit bill at a store in Minnesota.
Let's go. Yes.
Derek Chauvin now faces up to 40 years in prison on the most serious charge of second-degree murder. Sentencing will be at a later date. His bail was immediately revoked and he was led away with his hands cuffed behind his back.
This verdict brings us a step closer, and the fact is, we still have work to do. We still must reform the system. Last summer, together with Senator Cory Booker and Representative Karen Bass, I introduced the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. This bill would hold law enforcement accountable and help build trust between law enforcement and our communities. This bill is part of George Floyd's legacy.
Put your fucking hands up right now.
The blue wall of silence, the unwritten code among officers to save their own, crumbled to bits. When, in an unprecedented show of morality, the Minneapolis police chief quickly called it murder and fired all 4 officers involved.
This is why you don't do drugs, kids.
The city reached a staggering $27 million settlement with Floyd's family months before the trial jury selection was over. With Derek Chauvin found guilty of murder, attention now turns to his sentencing and to the trial of 3 fellow former police officers who are accused of aiding and abetting Chauvin in the killing of George Floyd.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned the world not to cross the line with Russia, as countries after countries have now accused Russia of interfering and showing military might. A defiant Russia has responded with diplomatic offensive. This even as protests continue to grow in the streets of Russia, demanding the release of political prisoners, including harshest Putin critic Alexei Navalny. This, as his health conditions deteriorate in a prison in Russia, the cry to release him grows stronger worldwide.
Отпускай! Отпускай!
Russians are out on the street protesting. Moscow witnessed the largest of them on 21st April. News agency reports confirmed nearly 1,500 Russians were arrested on single-day protests from across the country, demanding the release of Alexei Navalny.
Мне кажется, наша власть чересчур обезумела от ее наличия. Поэтому я ухожу сегодня на этот митинг с требованием свободу политзаключенным, свободу Алексея Навального.
Putin critic Navalny's team called for these unsanctioned demonstrations after reports of his deteriorating health conditions indicated a possible threat to his life.
Он очень худой, просто он потерял, конечно, наверное, уже около 20 килограмм веса по сравнению с тем, каким он был, как вы видели в судах в январе-феврале месяце.
A group of doctors was prevented from visiting Navalny at the prison clinic on 20th April after waiting for hours. Russian President Vladimir Putin's most adamant critic Alexei Navalny has been on a hunger strike since March 31st to protest the refusal of prison officials to let his doctors visit and treat him for back pains and numbness in his legs. Kremlin has repeatedly refused allegations of mistreatment of Navalny in prison. It has raised concerns in the international community.
Let me say that as a reminder, in the president's first conversation with President Putin, he raised a range of concerns, including the treatment of Navalny. On March 2nd, we announced, in coordination with several key allies and partners, our response to Russia's use of a chemical weapon to poison Alexei Navalny. We continue to reiterate our view that that what happens to Mr. Navalny in the custody of the Russian government is the responsibility of the Russian government, and that they will be held accountable by the international community. As the National Security Advisor Sullivan has said, he said just yesterday, well, we're not going to telegraph our punches. If Mr. Navalny dies, well, there will be consequences to the Russian government, and we reserve those options. But in the interim, our objective is, of course, continuing to call for, push for his release and reiterate our view that he must be treated humanely.
Not only Navalny, Kremlin is being accused of interference and spying by different countries. Earlier, the Biden administration ordered the expulsion of 10 Russian diplomats and imposed sanctions against dozens of companies and people, holding the Kremlin accountable for interference in last year's presidential election and the hacking of federal agencies. Russia responded with belligerent.
Вместе с тем, недружественные акции в отношении России также не прекращаются. В некоторых странах завели пренеприличные обычаи. По любому поводу, а чаще всего вообще без всякого повода. Цеплять Россию. Спорт какой-то. Новый вид спорта там.
In his annual State of the Nation address, the Russian president even warned the West against further encroachment on Russia's security interests. Kremlin is being criticized heavily for its massive military buildup near Ukraine.
Я просто вынужден это сказать. При этом у нас хватит терпения, ответственности, профессионализма, уверенности в себе и своей правоте и здравого смысла при принятии любого решения. Но надеюсь, что никому не придет в голову перейти в отношении России так называемую красную черту. А где она будет проходить, это мы будем определять в каждом конкретном случае сами.
In 1 week, Russia took diplomatic offensive actions against its neighborhood countries by expelling its diplomats. Moscow expelled 20 Czech diplomats in response to Prague's accusation against Russian military intelligence of masterminding a deadly blast at an ammunition warehouse in 2014.
Na základě kriminalistického zkoumání, což bych podtrhl, to znamená kriminalistického, nebylo to nějaké pouhé.
Czechoslovakia expelled 18 Russian diplomats. In another instance, Kremlin expelled 2 Bulgarian diplomats in Spyro. For the time being, Vladimir Putin is embroiled in offensive actions both at home and outside, while the international community continues to watch and criticize his actions.
Как давно уже ни о чем не жалели.
Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan's protest over demand to expel France's ambassador to Islamabad has cost too many lives and made a mockery of the Pakistani administration. But Imran Khan still continues to bargain and is even considering an anti-blasphemy law, a global anti-blasphemy law. But in the free world, are there takers for such a proposal?
Had talks.
Prime Minister Imran Khan called for Muslim-majority countries to band together to lobby Western governments to criminalize the insulting of Prophet Muhammad. In a televised address to the nation from Islamabad on Monday, Khan said he would lead a campaign of Muslim-majority countries to convince Western countries on the issue of blasphemy against the Prophet.
जो मैं कैंपेन कर रहा हूं, मैं आपको यकीन दिलाता हूं कि यही तरीका है कि इंशाअल्लाह एक दिन उनको समझ आ जाएगी और वो दिन दूर नहीं है। मैं आज आप सबके सामने कहता हूं कि मैं जिम्मेदारी इसकी लेता हूं, मैं ही इस कैंपेन को लीड करूंगा, लेकिन मैं इंशाअल्लाह अपनी कौम को मायूस नहीं करूंगा, अपने मुसलमानों को मायूस नहीं करूंगा। हम इंशाअल्लाह उनको ये एक दिन समझा देंगे कि जिस तरह अगर वो यहूदियों के लिए सेंसिटिव है, उनको तकलीफ नहीं देना चाहते, तो हम तो सवार मुसलमान हैं, हमारे भी दिल हैं, हमें भी तकलीफ होती है।
This even as the administration continues to battle the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan. 3 months ago, Pakistani administration promised the far-right group with expulsion of the French ambassador within 3 months, not appointing Pakistan's ambassador to France, officially endorsing the boycott of French products. But reality has sunk in, and the administration has said it will not allow foreign policy to be dictated by radical elements. Even as Pakistan continues to face severe turmoil and clashes, I'm being joined by senior journalist, analyst, and a member of SAFMA, Imtiaz Alam from Lahore. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, Imtiaz. Let me begin by asking you, why is it that we see Imran Khan administration succumb to the wishes of the TLP? And how is it that an organization that has been declared a banned organization, Saad Rizvi, still in custody, is allowed to allowed to hold the entire administration hostage?
You see, they in fact kidnapped 12 police officers and soldiers. They were late night released after negotiations. And then finally, Sheikh Rashid, the interior minister, entered into yet another agreement with TLP leadership in jail. He was accompanied by religious affairs minister. They agreed on the following points. One, that they will propose a resolution in the National Assembly whether to extradite the French ambassador or not. It was not a commitment to extradite, but it was an open question, which was their demand that it be placed before the National Assembly. Second, they released 660 activists who were arrested under maintenance of public order. As in India, MPO is used here as well. And but yet 110 of their activists who were involved in arson, killing, and beating of police officials, they are in prison. And Saad Rizvi is under arrest, still in prison under Article 302 of CRPC and Article 7 of Anti-Terrorism Act. These are two non-bailable offenses. There are 210 FIRs registered against these people. The second point, the Interior Minister of the government agreed to or conceded was that their workers will be released, and they have been released, 660 of them. Thirdly, there is a provision in Anti-Terrorism Act to put people on the fourth schedule. Fourth schedule is that you are to go daily to police station to tell about your movement, and you have your ID card is withdrawn, and you are not allowed to travel without the permission of the police. It's a very tedious law, but I think they agreed to release most of their workers or remove most of their workers from the fourth schedule. But 110 will be facing the courts.
Right, Imtiaz, the bigger question over here, we heard Prime Minister Imran Khan address the nation. He also spoke about global anti-blasphemy laws. I just wanted to understand, how is it that religion trumps all when it comes to Pakistan, and the fact that there are so many other challenges that the country is facing, but this has become the biggest challenge?
Because in those 3 or 4 days, when the agitation started and they had planned to attack Islamabad, reach Islamabad, and put up a dharna there and sit in. So government wanted to avoid that, and they tried to stop them. But that turned into a bloody clash. You see that this is the same organization, TLP, which had twice gone to Islamabad and blockaded the twin cities, Rawalpindi and Islamabad. And they came victorious because the state conceded. Why? Because the religious extremists have a quite strong presence here in terms of organization and cadres and their capability. They could put up a very effective dharna, and they could paralyze the whole state machinery. So government, instead of allowing them to reach Islamabad, adopted both the tactics. They in fact took a lot of somersault. Imran Khan addressed to the nation that yes, I agree about the Namus-e Risalat, the respect for Prophet. I have no ideological difference, but you see that he then counted a lot of adverse consequences of extraditing the French ambassador. So he was right in that argument that a government or state cannot afford this. So that is why in the resolution, they have also put up another contradictory clause. That is that the matters of foreign policy and security will be are to be taken, the decisions are to be taken by the state, not by under any pressure of any group.
If Pakistan does not show zero tolerance this time around, like you said, Imtiaz, they are going to face a lot of criticism, and there will be a lot of succumbing in future as well. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today with your perspective on what's really happening in Pakistan. Welcome back to World Today. India reported a global record of over 314,000 new infections on the 22nd of April, leaving the second most populous country in the world gasping, even as the second wave hit India the worst. and affected a very fragile healthcare system of the country. On the other hand, there are other countries like Israel that decided to unmask in public places after completing their inoculation process. Most countries are trying to complete their vaccination program so as to come out of the pandemic. The world is watching COVID vaccine trials and the challenges that come with the vaccination program and the trials.
Is now the biggest challenge instead of increasing supply?
At a time when the world is still trying to mitigate vaccine distribution inequality, the US announced that they will not be sending vaccines abroad for the time being.
We're in the process of doing that. We've done a little bit of that already.
European Union is preparing to procure vaccine doses for its population from different biotech firms for 2022 and 2023.
As of today, we have now administered 117 million vaccine doses in the EU, and we're getting close to administering 3 million vaccinations every day. Over 30 million of our citizens are now fully vaccinated. Production capacities across the EU is gathering pace, making it possible to speed up deliveries and have an additional 50 million doses from BioNTech Pfizer over the next 10 weeks.
We don't have enough to be confident to send it abroad now, but I expect we're going to be able to do that.
With 8% of world's population, Latin America has so far reported 30% COVID deaths. At the Ibero-American Summit in Andorra, where 22 countries from Latin America, Spain and Portugal are taking part, vaccination and access to shots against COVID-19, along with the economic recovery of nations, are at the top of their agenda.
Covid-19 continua a causar milhares de vítimas e é essencial unirmos esforços para acelerar a vacinação a nível global. Mas este desafio comum não será ultrapassado sem cooperação e solidariedade. E a principal lição internacional que temos a retirar deste ano de pandemia é que a humanidade precisa urgentemente de um tratado internacional para as pandemias, para que no futuro não tenhamos de improvisar ou reagir na emergência, como temos feito com muito custo ao longo deste ano.
While single-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been linked to rare blood clot cases, AstraZeneca vaccine too is under the scanner for blood clot possibilities. In the middle of this news of intranasal spray vaccine and medicine to fight COVID-19 has brought cautious excitement among international community. 13 companies are currently working on intranasal sprays and 5 are in early clinical trial. As treatment, the spray is said to be an immediate game changer. Phase 2 clinical trials of Sanotize, the self-administered nasal spray developed by Vancouver-based biotech outfit, has displayed strong evidence that the treatment could become a revolutionary weapon against the coronavirus.
To 2 years to 12 years, we want to do clinical trial quickly, phase 2B or something like that, bridging a small trial without 300 or 500, whatever statistics says. We're going to do that because these vaccines can go to children without any problem.
No, which one? Your Covaxin can go to children or your nasal vaccine can go to children?
No, inactivated vaccine.
Your Covaxin?
Inactivated, yes, Covaxin. Can go to children without any problem.
Israel has already granted the spray medical approval. It became the first country in the world to go mask-free in public this week, bringing hope of return to pre-pandemic life to reality.
That's all on World Today this week. Before I go, I'll leave you with visuals of what happened on Earth Day. Taking you to South America's Lake Titicaca, where volunteers, police officials on the Bolivian side came together to clean up the lake. They removed plastic bags, containers from the shores of the lake, while the Bolivian Navy tried to clean up underwater garbage. At 8,400 square kilometers, Titicaca is the largest body of fresh water in South America and the highest navigable lake in the world at 12,470 feet, shared between Bolivia and Peru. On the Bolivian side, mostly in the lower reaches, it has heavy metal contamination such as lead and arsenic, originating surrounding cities which discharge their sewage into it. On Earth Day, Bolivian police, troops and local volunteers gathered on the shores of Titicaca to clean it up. The cleanup will continue over the next few days as well. Take care and have a good day.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.